Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. I appreciate y'all being here early at 10 a.m. after a long night last night. I am Billi Rogers, the VP of Brand and Marketing at the Texas Blockchain Council. You might be wondering to yourself, why is the marketing girl hosting this panel? And if you were not wondering that, you are now. I got into the industry because I learned about the energy grid, and I was fascinated. More mind blown, maybe, that I didn't understand something that I used every day. And that's what opened up the rabbit hole for me to get into this industry. And so that is why I'm sitting here on this panel that I renamed Land versus Power, because land and power, who cares? I think there's this really interesting dichotomy between land and power that we should explore. And so thank you for being here, Curtis. Thank you for being here, Adam. If you would just give us a little background, maybe a fun tidbit on how you got into the industry and to the position you are in now. If you want to start, Adam?
Sure. I'll go first. And thank you, Billi. I'm Adam, Senior Account Director with Arcus. I've been in energy in some way, shape, or form for about 15 years. That started right out of college. I helped launch an LED lighting startup back when that was the big craze, and then spent some time in utility incentive programs and utility billing. Then moved over to smart metering and decided to join Arcus because I was kind of tired of helping people solve for the next incremental kilowatt hour when we had all of these big megawatt problems. And I was excited to join Arcus so that we could help really on that side of the grid. And Arcus has been in kind of the Bitcoin mining space for several years now. I always like to hear the story our CEO tells of back when he was power trading still, starting to mine Bitcoin in his garage in Alberta, which created a little bit of a snow melting problem on the roof. So I've always been excited to join the space and look at things through the lens, kind of bring the lens of power trading to large loads. And so that's what we're here to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Curtis?
Hey, good morning. Wow. Yep. I held that close enough. Yeah. Hey, thank you for being here. It's wonderful. I see several friends here. Cheers to the front row crew, to the first guy in. It's fun. Billy's controversial. It's a little housekeeping. We were trying to figure out where to sit, and because I'm old, I wanted to be in the middle so I could hear both of them talk. So, thank you everyone for being here. My name's Curtis Harris. My role, Senior Director of Growth at Compass Mining. My background was construction, civil engineering, zoning, land use, regulatory approval. I used to be a suit and tie guy in front of city commissions. I fell in love with Bitcoin because it, brought freedom to my family. And because of that, I wanted to work in Bitcoin, and I gravitated to mining because of hard asset infrastructure construction. I didn't realize at that time that my whole role was going to become about energy and electricity, but it is. And I'm thankful for this conversation, Billi.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So Compass does a lot of hosting so that people don't have to self-host their miners. Did I get that right? Is that accurate, Curtis?
Yeah, we do a lot of hosting. That's our primary business. We invented a buy and host model. That's right.
Yes, that's accurate. So from that perspective, what are the three non-energy factors that can destroy a site's profitability regardless of cheap power?
So I think if you're trying to set up the conversation, the topic's land versus power. So you're trying to compare, we all know power drives it, but then land's important too. So then the question is, what are some concerns that impact site profitability? And the things that come to mind most for me, I'll just list them and then I'll speak briefly on them. But I would say permitting. Okay, which ties directly into local acceptance, to NIMBYs, to the community climate. Is probably second, so that it really matters. And then third, it's probably supply chain. It's, did you have all your ducks lined up in a row? For the benefit of the audience, I hope we hear from the guests, but I'll expand on those 3 points briefly and then kick it on. But permitting, there's every horror story out there. There's fully permitted sites through county commissions and under construction where neighbors can complain and commissions can unpack all of that. So you can think you've got everything right and you can still get spun undone at a Bitcoin mining site. So then permitting, you have to control that so tightly, but you can't forget the local acceptance. Even if you've got that stamp of approval, being involved in your community and thinking that you bring something to them isn't the right approach. It's figuring out what do you need to do? How do you participate? How do you stand there to be involved? The second two things I think are more clear: climate right? Mining's different in Canada than it is in Texas, and recognizing that if you think you can plug in air-cooled anywhere and not deal with dust or other climate concerns, you're not paying enough attention. And the last one that I had was supply chain. And what I'll say is there's every strategy, but you should have a strategy. Are you building your site first and then buying your miners, or did you buy your miners and all of that capital sitting in a warehouse somewhere and you can't find a place to plug them in? So how do you time that so all your capital is appropriately deployed at the right time, and then you can energize at the right schedule? So those are my three ideas. I hope they help the conversation, Billi.
Yeah, absolutely. That was very insightful. I know local acceptance is a big piece of it, right? We all hear in the media when that goes wrong. And so I think to follow up on that, how are you gauging an area in local acceptance? How are you getting them to buy in? And what does that look like on your side?
Well, I thought I was done. I was happy to pass the mic there. So I
was wondering too.
Yeah. I'll give two points. So in Denver, we're active participants in the local Bitcoin community. We host a mining meetup. We participate in a third space called The Space. It's a Bitcoin mining community. We open our doors to our service center. So instead of being like, we want to be a little shielded, we try to be transparent. We open the doors so the community can see us. And then in Iowa, as a second example, you host local meet and greets where you just generally invite this community. Like, they don't know what Bitcoin is. They don't know what mining is. And to stand in front of them for those simple questions is two examples I had, Billi.
I love that. Thank you. I think education is what I pull from that, right? Is making sure that the surrounding community is really educated and knows what we're doing. And I think everyone here is passionate about that. And so thank you for that. Adam, Arcus's mission is really about turning uncertainty into opportunity for everyone that touches the wire. And so I'm so curious, what do you quantify as uncertainty?
Sure. And thanks, Billi. And I mentioned it kind of a little bit in my beginning, our background as a company is power trading. So when we look at uncertainty and turning it into opportunity, we really are focusing on volatility in a power market. And that can be volatility in the form of real-time price spikes, coincident peaks, managing the day ahead versus real-time market, or as traders will refer to it as, dart spreads, things like that can really impact whether you're a Bitcoin miner. It kind of translates across industries as well, because you're always going to be concerned really about that next price of power. And that is, it's kind of easy for me to say that. And like I told Billi before, I didn't think I had any land points, but a huge factor in all of that, and Curtis, you mentioned it, it's much different mining Bitcoin in Canada than it is in Texas, and it's the same for power grids. Weather's a big driver for pricing on the grid, coincident peaks, typically, in Texas, when you guys hit a coincident peak, there's 4 of those. They go from May, June, July, and August, or I have that June, July, August, September, there we go. And those are driven, on the hottest days, and you want to avoid those coincident peaks so that you're not over-consuming energy during those periods, because it's really just gonna kill you. So that's one of the things that we forecast, and it's kind of easy for me to say that because not only does Arcus do forecasting for those grid conditions, but we also have access to North America's largest power market database. So we're constantly looking at this data, and that data includes pricing data, weather data from either national sources, or we'll also look at third-party weather data that's going to be a little bit more specific, like if it's located near your mine, or for any power traders in the room near a price node or things like that. And that's really when we look at uncertainty, it's kind of sifting through all of this power data to gain insights on whether I should be mining, whether I should be, avoiding a coincident peak that day. That's what we're trying to bring clarity to in the uncertainty.
Perfect. That's amazing. Thank you. So when you're looking at all this data, so Arcus is providing all the data to the end user, which is the miners, you guys, right? So where are you pulling this data from? Are you able to share some of that information?
Absolutely. Yeah, and so some of it, data, it's key to everything that we do. Some of it is proprietary. Some of it is third-party proprietary data. Okay. A lot of it is publicly available data. Yeah. We're using that publicly available data, though, to, like I mentioned, that data hub, it's been around since 1998. So the amount of data that we have access to that we can then use to build our forecast is really, I think, what sets us apart and gives us the insights that we have. So we use that data to build, it's really the real-time price forecast. Real-time price forecasting is key for miners to avoid really that next, like, tell me what the next price of power is going to be every 15 minutes for the next day and a half. If you have access to that type of information and you know you need to schedule maintenance, that's a great time to look at that, is like say, hey, I know that prices are going to spike tomorrow, or maybe we're even going to avoid a coincident peak. I should really look at maybe taking some stuff offline, conducting some maintenance during that period, so that when prices level out, I can get back on and get back connected to the grid.
Yeah, that's great insight. Thank you. And so from the different regions or different ISOs, where are you seeing the best data or most valuable data come from?
The most valuable, it's interesting because it's not the question I thought you were going to ask. I thought you were going to say, like, what's the cheapest place to...
Plot twist.
The best data, I mean, ERCOT's done a great job. It's interesting, too, because we're seeing more market redesigns right now, like Ontario just redesigned their power market. Alberta's looking at doing the same thing.
That's interesting.
And ERCOT, because of the way that the market's structured with it, like, you know, kind of being an island and then having the hubs in the load zones to dictate some of the pricing. I'm going to say ERCOT, but half of that is just because I'm sitting here in Dallas, Texas.
I was hoping you would say that. Are you able to share where there's the most growth for better data to come from?
I would, it's still probably here, but it's California too. Anywhere where batteries are going in. So all of the, like, and that's Texas and that's California. So a lot of those batteries are going to rely on like 1 minute supply information. Okay. Alberta has a lot of 1 minute supply information, but it's a smaller market, so it's hard to kind of say. But California and Texas, with the more batteries coming on the grid, there's a lot more data that's involved in helping to optimize those batteries.
Awesome.
Can I contribute?
Absolutely.
So I heard you say something compelling. You made the implication, like, you know, to teach the audience, where, because these miners, they're all pulling this data, right? And so a thread that I want to tie together, we had a pre-call before the panel, and Adam and I shared a nice point that this creates an opportunity to get to know each other better. And through that, I've learned a lot more about Arcus. And as a, you know, Bitcoin miner, like, the work that they do is really fundamental. But what I've found is Bitcoin miners grow more sophisticated, and I don't think Bitcoin miners come immediately to their first mine where they're you know, paying for complex tools. But as they've worked in multiple markets, as they've suffered, they recognize that there's vendors, there's data, and like when we frame land versus power, I think data plus dirt is really compelling in our industry.
I agree. Yeah, thank you for that, Curtis. And like, I think this industry, unlike others, like I can sit and see a few. I see Doug back there. Like, people back here that have power trading backgrounds are very prevalent in this space, unlike other like bigger commercial and industrial type customers. And like, so we also work with our friends over there at NL North America to provide demand response in addition to that price forecasting. And then it becomes more of automating that decision-making process. So like, it's great that you can tell me what the price of power is going to be next Tuesday, but like, what can you help me do about it? And that's where we start to, like, back to your original question about proprietary versus non-proprietary. You can do both, and you can build algorithms.
There we go. That's a good word.
You can build algorithms based off of like publicly available data and proprietary data to help guide that decision-making process for, should I be avoiding high prices? Should I be available for demand response? Or should I be avoiding a coincident peak as well? So it's really a combination of all of them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And honestly, I think, did you say date and dirta? No, that was it.
Data plus dirt.
Yeah, that one.
Dirta.
That's a great.
Dirta. Yeah.
That's
coined
my
it,
IP.
Billy.
That's my IP, guys.
TM.
I like it. That's a great panel name, by the way. We'll put you on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So Compass has sites all over North America. So have you been able to kind of standardize the build process with all these different components, or is it very different at each location?
Well, those are no. We've not been able to standardize, and I think it's a really relevant question. So it's very difficult to plug and play from one region to another. There's so many things that have to change. Tell me more, Billy. Like, what are you getting at? What do you think the audience wants to learn? I think that the challenges with infrastructure standardization across multiple regions, for us, it's usually, local electrical compliance. So whether they're which code are they following and how good are they at interpreting code and figuring out, internal disconnects, external disconnects, UL rated, componentry versus the entire system. But I'd love to say more. Would you expand your question?
On the spot. Okay, I think what I really want to get out of it, and you guys can shake your heads and say yes if you agree, is once you get that first site up and running, there has to be this kind of like buzz of, oh, let's do it again. And can you replicate everything you did, almost like a playbook, to where you can then pick another site and do those same things? Or is it really just like starting from scratch all over again? And you can't standardize it because everything is so different in each location.
I lit up when you said the word buzz, and I forget this, but I think I learned this from Nick Gates in studying ERCOT. But doesn't the electrical grid vibrate at a certain resonance or frequency? And like when you said buzz, like that buzz is energizing a site, and there is really nothing more like exciting than energizing a site. But then when you try to go to sleep and there's curtailment or things in the middle of the night, once that site's energized, it's your baby, and it's constant attention to keep it running, and then to try to pivot, and we're going to build in a different location. Billy, and Adam, our experience is really you start over from the ground at each particular site. Of course, let me share one more concept. You mentioned Compass has sites across North America. We've historically operated in smaller sites, right? We're, capital light, we're scrappier, so 8 megawatts that can grow to 30, or we're partnered in someone else's site. So when you're a larger pubco and you can develop massive infrastructure, you're hitting economies of scale, and you're developing systems and processes that smaller operators aren't able to. And I think that that's good. That's the thing to work towards. But we're still scrappy and fighting each site on its own.
I love that. I mean, that's at the heart of it, right? I think everyone can relate to that. And so which site has maybe given you the less headaches?
Which site has maybe given us the least headaches? Yeah. There's partners in the room, and so I certainly don't want to be disparaging. I think we're having a lot of success with our customer base. So we serve a couple different types of customers. We serve a retail customer, an individual. They can buy one miner, they can buy 5, they can host them on one of our facilities. It's a turnkey miner. It's plugged in right away. We have a lot of those customers, and we're good at serving them. And then the second type of customer is an institutional customer. They're deploying large amounts of capital. They really put tight controls on them. We operate facilities for them. But what we've seen in our retail customer demand is they're putting capital into the hydro units. They're efficient. They're working well. So we've got we're growing in our hydro deployments, and I think that I'll say that that site is probably our best functioning. For customer experience. The last thing I'll say to that is you're not just watching uptime, you're also watching utilization. So uptime, it's how often is your site on, but utilization is how many of those rack spaces are actually filled and running a miner today, and the combination of solving for those two creates the best experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. I went through kind of your UI of ordering a miner and seeing how easy it was, and it's very, very impressive. So I love that. Are you using anything like Arcus provides to kind of look at your data?
I was going to say we could help you. You mentioned not being able to sleep at night because of his curtailment concerns, and we could really help you with that.
Yeah, I'll share with that. I hope it's relevant for the benefit of the audience, but we started in a hosting model where we were taking capacity in other people's facilities, and in that case, we weren't controlling the PPA, right? So now as we've evolved into our own wholly owned infrastructure is when we've gotten smarter and better at systems and controls like that.
Yeah. And what we see too, I'm glad you brought up PPAs. Like many folks, like you could either, and you see it more now than you did a few years ago, especially for Bitcoin mining companies, like you couldn't take out like a hedged PPA or anything like that. You'd always be riding real time. And I still think, especially in ERCOT, that as long as you can understand how to avoid, 5 to 10% of hours, you're better off riding the real-time market and just avoiding for like those huge price spikes. And so we see a lot of that too, because you're always trying to figure out like, should I take out a position where I'm like settling at a block for a certain rate? And in many cases, if you can ride real-time, you're better off, but you have to be watching the market and you have to understand where prices are heading to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it'll help you sleep better at night.
Nice.
You could sleep better. It is an option.
I'm looking back at Arcus. Is that their tagline? Miners sleep better at night.
Not yet.
Great tagline.
Not yet.
Along with Dirta.
Dirta.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Dirta. Sleep better at night.
We're on to something, you guys. You're the first to hear it. Awesome. Well, if you don't mind just sharing something that maybe we wouldn't hear anywhere else about what's on the horizon for Compass and Arcus, or maybe just something to be on the lookout for early stage miners that they wouldn't be thinking of as they're setting up their sites. So if you can't share anything that's on the horizon.
I'll go. I think I'd kind of just like to, Arcus's mission right now is really to enable the next phase of what we call energy expansion. And that's it's for all industries, but where we're seeing it is we've seen it for Bitcoin, and now we're seeing it more for AI. And it's really our belief that if we can kind of help, we'll say, level off the peaks and valleys of power markets, that we can build a more stable grid and enable that next phase of energy growth so that North America, the US, Canada can continue to compete in AI and Bitcoin mining at a large scale.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. What about you, Curtis? Any insights or little tidbits to leave us with?
You mentioned it's being recorded. So I have no expectation that any of you guys have followed Compass, but we've been around for 5 years. Maybe you've got some familiarity with this. And I mentioned earlier about how we've aggregated through different use cases of sites in somebody else's facility, working our way to, vertical integration. And I think, juicy stuff for the end of the panel. We're at a point today where we're capitalized to, pull down probably one of our largest sites, and we're actively, closely diving into the land details on multiple options. So I think we're really close to 3 final sites where we might be making a large announcement about a big site that's fully capitalized, and we're excited about continued vertical integration. Billy, it's what Compass needs to grow, is to control and own our own infrastructure.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank all of you for being here at 10 a.m. on a Friday. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, okay?